a lot of learning new languages, and I'm not talking about a foreign language, I'm talking about all the letters and the words and how they differ between branches and things like that. And the one thing that I love about military spouses is that regardless of where you go, you'll always meet someone who's been there and done that. You'll always meet someone who's doing it right now, or you'll meet someone who's about to do it. Whatever it is, moving, deploying, all those kinds of things. And I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if when you married your spouse, someone pulled you aside and said, hey, here's a book, and you need to read it. I would suggest you read it on the way to the reception because it's really going to be helpful to you. We've compiled the best advice, insights, and just, the law of the land for military spouses. And so sometimes we will share as panelists, and also we'll have people in the audience come and share, if you would have known one thing before you married your spouse, like if someone would have told you what would have been helpful to you, whether it's, who knows. I'll give you a story as an example and then we'll let the panel go ahead. Okay, so my husband, I've known him for a long time. We've only been married 7 years, but we grew up in the same small town. And for as long as I've known him, he's been a champion sleeper. You go on a date to the movies, he's out like a light. It's like, who am I going to talk about the movie with after the movie if you can't even stay awake? He never has a problem falling asleep. He'll power nap for like 15 or 20 minutes and then he's awake and he's, fine and good to go. I wish someone would have told me that when, especially like an Army National Guard person who has a civilian job and then he goes to train and comes home, if they're gone for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time, they don't always sleep as soundly as they used to. And you should be aware of that. At our house, sometimes he'll fall asleep before I do, so I have the television on at night, and I remember to set the sleep timer so the TV turns itself off. Okay. One night, my husband had been out training for a couple of months. He had been to some kind of school, and he came home, and he is snoring. And I fell asleep, and I forgot to set the timer to turn the television off. It was very late, and I wake up, and his hand is over my mouth. And his hand is like this in front of his face. And he's very intense. And he's like, quiet. Someone is in the house. Really? What are you still doing here? Why are you here? Then go find them. Why are you telling me? What am I going to do? I'm like, get out of here and go do something. But anyway, and he says, shh, you hear him? I said, you idiot, that's the TV. Do not wake me up in the middle of the night to tell me the television's on. Pay attention. What did you think that big glowing thing in the corner was? It is not an intruder, my friend. Correct. And the very same week, I told him, I said, you're just going to have to sleep on the couch. Because the very same week, I wake up and he's sitting straight up in bed and he's shoving the covers down between the two of us. And I thought he was awake, but he was asleep. And I said, hon, what are you doing? He goes, you are in violation. I'm in violation. And P.S., you're from Ohio, so why are you talking like that? You are in violation. There are targets downrange. You need to move. You need to move. You need to get your pillow and go. Like right this minute. He has no recollection of either of those things. I said, you need to like tone it down. Like run or something before you go to bed. Like get all that out. I don't know. But Ruthie, what would be your advice to like a new military spouse who's just shiny and new to the whole experience? What would you say?
I have to say that Murphy lives in my house. All the time, and so it's always one thing after another with me. And the one lesson that I've learned from being a military spouse is, it was actually put into words by one of our other authors who couldn't be here today. She says, bitter or better, choose your battle. You can't control what life does to you, but you can control how you react to it. So, for instance, my mother-in-law is Russian, and she's crazy. And she's not just crazy like Russian people. She also has dementia. And my husband's an only child. So she went insane when my husband was in Afghanistan. And she hates me. She'll tell me. She tells me, Ruthie, I hate you. bib or my life. And I'm the one that had to take her to a nursing home. So you can imagine how that went in. And she's so bad that she does have an ex-husband, my father-in-law, who is also Russian and crazy. And she would call him and complain about how horrible I was and it was ruining her life, and her son should have just married a good Russian girl and she could have brought one over for him. And so he called me very upset and he wanted to know if we could put her out of her misery. And we're not in the Netherlands, so we can't do that here, and I had to explain that to him. And meanwhile, my husband's in Afghanistan, and they don't let you come home for that. I had to take care of the crazy Russian lady myself. And I could have chosen, there were days, I will admit, there were days where I sat on the couch and I just watched TV. I was like, Dr. Phil, show me worse people. And sometimes you have to get it out of your system. You need to sit there for a day and like get the Sam's Club sized chocolate chip cookies and the real Coke. You need to do that sometimes. But then you gotta make the best of it. You gotta move forward. You gotta put on your big girl panties and do what you need to do to get ahead. And for me, what has always worked is just laughing at it. Because you know what? She's really ridiculous. And if it makes one person laugh who says, you know what, I thought what I was going through was bad, but my mother-in-law's not biting people, then it's all worth it for me. But I'll only say it's worth it like after it's over.
If I had someone come to me the day I got married to give me some advice, I think I would have liked to have them explain to me how the vacation time worked. Because when we got married, I was like, 30 days of leave a year? Gosh, that's so much. We're going to take all these vacations. It's going to be fantastic. Have you ever gotten to use any of your leave when you wanted to? We've never gotten to. I thought we would be able to travel and do whatever. No. The only time we've ever gotten to take leave is block leave before a deployment or after a deployment or to PCS somewhere. And every time we go somewhere, it's to my parents' house or his parents' house. And I'm so tired of taking every vacation to Peoria, Illinois or Kansas City. It's driving me crazy. We never get to go anywhere good because he's always busy. And then they say, oh, you have these deployments. So my husband's career field right now is one of those where you're 8 months gone, 8 months home, 8 months gone, 8 months home. But 8 months home doesn't mean 8 months home. It just means, well, you're kind of at home, but then you're leaving for a week and you're yo-yoing back and forth. So you go for a month to one school, you come back, you go for a week to another school. And during this 8 months that he's supposedly been home, he's been gone for at least 1 week of every single month. So he's not home. But we decided to fix this. So this year, for his block leave that's coming up in June, we told both sets of parents we are not coming to visit you, we are taking a trip. So, finally, after 7 years, we are not going to Peoria or Kansas City.
I think a good piece of advice, and I wish someone had given it to me, was when your husband's about to redeploy, or your spouse as it were, don't do anything drastic in the 24-hour period before he's going to be there. If you've never waxed your bikini line before, don't do it yourself. Right? You've never put highlights in your hair before? The morning of is not a good time to start. That's my piece of advice. And if I were you, I would take it.
You guys are all so funny, and I just have boring stuff. I realized this weekend on the plane that I need to keep like an index card in my wallet of every address I've ever had. I mean, I think it's probably going to take up more than one index card. It's probably going to take up like 4 or 5. But I wanted to go put my miles on my frequent flyer card. And of course, I haven't flown this airline in 7 years or something. And they said, I gave them my last name, and they said, well, what zip code is it under? Looked at her.